Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are at, and welcome to the Ambassador Wing and Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review. And I know this is a little earlier than we normally go live, but I have some obligations later this afternoon, so discuss this with the council, and we decided to go early. So I appreciate everybody that is currently in the chat, whether you're vocal or you're just lurking, whatever works for you. Glad you're here, and my fellow council members, Ian Wolf, Mountains of Elysium, and I think we're going to be expecting Lord Koj here before too long. But yeah, this should be an interesting discussion because we're going over the episode Stick Transit Vir. And
Abraham Lincoln and Bottom's excellent timing and Beer's excellent timing.
Yes, and Vienna, Elysium, good to see you both, and glad you're here again today. So, I've kind of done my little spiel. Let's dig in, then let's jump into Stick Transit Vir. This is a somewhat more comedic, yet it starts to take a turn towards the end of the episode, or towards the middle of the episode. It gets a little more serious, and well, we get introduced to a, let's put it politely, very eccentric Centauri lady, Lindesty.
Well, her parents are rather old school, and apparently her father taught her too well. Oops.
Yes, indeed. And of course, she's like, Lindesty is a very interesting character, to say the least. And I'm just, I'm almost glad Vir did not end up with her. So
No, I think Vir ended up, because it's somewhat put in the books later on, but Vir ended up with the one lady that was what's his face that got BTFO'd by the Narn. My mind is blanking, but that's his daughter. Lord Rifa's daughter. Yeah, Lord Rifa's daughter. She becomes a ward of Molari when he becomes emperor.
And she's the one in the beginning who was the nanny.
Yep.
Oh, I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it's in Peter David's the Legions of Fire trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah, you get a whole lot more background of what was happening with Londo, especially towards the end of season 5. Like, oh boy. And it's almost kind of like a season 6 in a way, because it involves the techno mages too.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh man, what happened to Londo's other wife? What was it, Lindesty? Ooh, ouch. But yeah, I'll just link it here in the chat for people. So.
No, because...
Or what, Lindesty? Or no, who was it? Marielle. Yeah. Or the one that was cavorting with Jakar. There you go. Yes. But yeah, what happens with her in that trilogy? Oh, ouch. Oof.
I guess she meets a very nasty end.
She gets like, because Galen's like, okay, Vir, I can get her to work with you, but it's like words of power that totally enslave her to what Vir wants to do, and it's like, oof. Ooh. Yeah, with that little side adventure, but yeah, honestly, people should check out the books. I'll go find a link.
Okay. Well, in terms of the episode, truth be told, the thing I found interesting was this was really an examination of the Centauri mindset towards Narns. And you've got, on one side, you've got Vir, who is more amiable and more respectful of the Narns. And then, of course, you got Lindesty and Londo. And you're like, ugh. I mean, I know, you would think that Londo would have a little... You saw the expression on his face when they were in orbit above Narn and they were using those mass drivers on the planet. And then you get him in this episode and he's like, they're Narns. Who cares if they die? And I'm like, man, you are just turning right back into the asshole here. In a matter of speaking.
I think this is probably Londo's lowest point. This is where he's the nastiest, meanest, and probably his worst character. Because his attitude towards the Narn when he was upset that Vir actually saved lives, and they were having no effect on anyone. That Vir got Narns out without anyone knowing, and yet he saw that as a scandal and something wrong.
Yeah. And, it really does show a stark difference between Vir and between Londo. And at least for me, I'm thinking, I'm glad Vir does not turn out to be anything like you, Londo. I'm glad he's completely antithetical and opposite of everything that you are. So, and to the chat, Bureau 31 and Geeks Enjoyed Nerdrotica, gentlemen, good to see you, and good morning and good evening to you both. Thank you for tuning in. Like I mentioned, I know this is a little earlier, but I've had something come up on the employment front, and I've got to go in for a physical, and I've got to do a few other things today. So we had to go early, or we had to do it another day, and I didn't want to miss. So thank you all for being here today. And Geeks, I'm glad that you have been watching Babylon 5 and you've been enjoying it. And hey, it's a classic. Contrary, and I'll drop a little reference here, contrary to what Sheldon Cooper has to say, I think Babylon 5 is actually a very good science fiction. But although I do like the character of Sheldon Cooper. I've been enjoying. Go ahead, Fiona.
Sorry, I'm looking at some of the projection notes for this particular episode, and they said Claudia Christian was clothed on set for the opening scene. The illusion of nudity was achieved by camera only showing her from the shoulders up or from the thighs down. So she was probably wearing like some sort of dress that cut off on both ends.
Probably.
Because she had that nightmare sequence when it opened up.
I remember. Yep. I was like, okay, I wondered how they pulled that particular scene off, because obviously there's no way J. Michael Straczynski going to sign off on one of his female leads walking around buck nude. So I had a feeling it was something along those lines, or maybe she was just in a strapless bathing suit or something like that, whatever the case may be. So, but yeah.
The looks on all the extras' faces were golden. Selling that nightmare.
They really sold it. I'm not going to lie, they did, and they really sold the fact Commander Ivanova's naked. So I found that extremely amusing, and positive candor. Good morning, sir, or good afternoon. Good to see you. So, but yeah, honestly, go ahead, Elysium. I almost called you here. Go ahead, Elysium.
Those dreams are terrifying. All I can say is when you arrive, you're at work or you're doing something, and you're going, "Oh crap, I should have checked."
Yeah, because I've had those dreams where you're falling from a great height, and right before you hit the ground, you wake up like,
What's even worse is when the dreams of you're naked and falling are the same ones. And is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Elysium and Au Natural.
The crazy thing is, I have never had a dream where I'm naked, but I actually have had a dream where I'm falling, which is odd. Well, maybe not odd, because everybody has dreams like that. But I, to the best of my recollection, I have never once had a. I've never had a dream where I am in the nude. Thankfully. So.
No, I haven't had one of those, but I have had the falling dream a couple of times. It's like, why? But not recently, though.
I heard a funny joke today. What is more dangerous than a room filled with angry nards? One angry nard with the key.
When I was listening to that joke, he reminded me of Saul Ty from Battlestar Galactica. He seems bumbling, buffoonish, but when you see him beforehand, he's really intelligent. He says, "You did not write all that letter yourself here. We can see your style and see that Londo has probably had too much influence on you."
Yes.
He's really good, but he just comes across as buffoonish, and I thought that was a lovely touch about him.
Yeah, Minister Verini. Granted, he only had one once. He had the scene at the beginning. That was it. But he really gave you a sense of the semi-delirium of the of the royal court in its current state.
Man.
If kisses could kill, that one could flatten several small towns. I've actually had kisses like that, mostly with Madam Ambassador, and she's probably rolling her eyes as I say that, if she hears me at all. Anyway, but digging a little bit more into the episode, of course, we get a little bit more progression with John and with Delenn, and
he tried to make Flarn, and she had to put the stakers on it.
Well, and
so different, like quick.
Go ahead, Elysium.
I was saying, if ever there was proof that Narns actually lie, this was it. Or sorry, Minbari actually lie, this was it. This puts that whole thing to bed that Minbari don't lie.
They do lie, but they lie not. But they do it to spare one's feelings. It's like the little white lie that doesn't really hurt anybody per se.
Oh man! And then after he gets slashed, she's trying to fix up his shirt. It's like, I could dress myself, and then Abana's excellent timing. It's like, oh, you just delayed that by a few more episodes.
Yep, pretty much.
But that's not the first time Abana's done that. She interrupted for a good cause with the other lady.
Yes, very true. Very, very true.
Who was probably just in the same character as Lindesty.
Oh, man.
But, Sheridan says something that is something I actually live by, and it's something that I've learned in life. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. And though I know it's just a phrase, it's not literal, but there is truth in it. Why look at things in a negative, pessimistic light and be miserable when you can enjoy life, revel in the good things about life? Because if you do die tomorrow, then you have lived one last good day.
And in some ways, that's the Centauri philosophy. We see that like in season 1, where Londo is at one with his inner, at one with his inner self.
Yes.
So it's what's that line? Val 2, that Centauri toast. So same sentiment. We look at and see, and we're thankful for being alive. Same in somewhat a similar sentiment.
Yeah, very true. And, Sheridan says something very interesting during that conversation between him and Delenn. He's like, we could tomorrow be engulfed in another battle or a revolution or something, or some other crisis or a battle or whatever the case may be. So he's like, dinner tonight. We're doing this. And it shows that he has a very impetuous and a very spontaneous side to his character, and I actually really appreciate that. Go ahead, Fiona.
Did she? I think she said a line something like, "Don't you see me every day in certain kinds of light?" And he's like, "Yeah, but how about candlelight?" Something like that.
Well, again, it's the whole language barrier between humans and Minbari. She's like, you see me every day unless I become translucent or insubstantial somehow. And he's like, okay, let me put it this way. I'd like to see you in candlelight. In other words, I'd like to see you in a more romantic setting.
Yep. Because they're always up to their necks and everything else.
Yes. And of course, Vir is the cause of the what else this time. They could have, if he hadn't done what he did or he hadn't gotten caught, John and Delenn could have had a perfectly nice evening. John would have not had to go out and save Vir and Lindesty from that bloodthirsty Narn. And, well, just seemingly justifiably bloodthirsty Narn. And they would have had a nice night. Instead, Vir did what he did, although he did it for a good reason. And I have to applaud the writing in this episode, particularly for Vir. He's like, I had to do something. Unlike you, Londo, who will do absolutely nothing. You'll sit back and let Narn just die by the dozens or more. He's like, I used my position. I do not regret it. He's like, my only regret is I didn't get a chance to do more.
That and Ivanova and Sheridan keep using Lincolni to get people out, and then God, what else was it? Like some of the notes say since Michael Garibaldi, like AKA Jerry Doyle, still had that injury, he wasn't in this episode, so they put Zach Allen in the forefront with certain things to get him ready to take over as like a bigger role for season 4, basically. At least this is what this thing's saying. Like, that's interesting.
Well, and that would make sense. Go ahead, Lysium.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, just going back on the with Vir, it is mentioned that he had a network on Centauri. It wasn't just him. There was more working with him. And it's just, it brought up how people do that in our real world, like Oscar Schindler or Hugh O'Flaherty. I mean, there was he was a priest in the Vatican, and he is responsible for saving 4,000 Jews and Allied POWs. He hid them in the Vatican. He got them out. He did what Vir did, while they had a death sentence on him, if he was caught around Rome, he was under orders to shoot on sight. And when one of his operatives was captured, he dressed up as a German soldier, walked into the Gestapo headquarters to give comfort to his friend. He said, I can't get you out, but I can give you comfort. And then left. And that's the kind of guy Vir is.
Yes. Well, and, I know it's a little bit on the nose, maybe a little bit more so on the nose in terms of the alternate identity or the alternate person that Vir sets up, but Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. I cannot say I necessarily disagree. And did you all happen to notice the date that this episode takes place on? July 3rd, 2260.
I must admit, I am ignorant of whatever that date could mean.
July 3rd was the third and final day of the Battle of Gettysburg. So, and it would be a few days later that Lincoln would give his address. So I always wondered, does Earth still celebrate Independence Day? Or being, it seems like it's a one world government now that the United States doesn't necessarily exist, as far as we know. Has that something that has passed into antiquity?
I think in the lore that the U.S. is would be the equivalent of Texas. It's still a state within the Union, within the Earth Alliance, and so probably they would still celebrate as local custom.
Oh, okay.
Which honestly makes sense. It's like in the European Union, eventually there's probably going to be a full political union. Ireland will still celebrate our days. France certainly won't give up Bastille Day. So I can see it going forward. Yeah, they would celebrate.
Yeah, and you know what? That's actually I think that's cool that even in the year 2260, what was known as the United States or is known as the United States still celebrates Independence Day. So, but yeah, I found that to be a nice little through line for people that are history buffs like myself and Madam Ambassador, because you have a reference to Abraham Lincoln with Abraham Lincoln, and you have the date, July 3rd, which, like I said, is I think the third and final day of the Battle of Gettysburg, which was one of the bloodiest and most horrific battles of the American Civil War. But getting back onto the episode itself, I have to say the interactions between Lindesty and Vir were intriguing because these are two very polar opposite personalities, and I won't lie, I found Lindesty at first somewhat charming, but as the episode goes along, she started to disturb me. What about you all? Did you find the same? Did you see the same thing, or am I alone here? And if I'm alone here, that's okay.
You're not alone.
Towards the end, she was telling Veer, like, my father says you're broken too, but that's okay. It's like, oh, something kind of along that effect. It's like, ouch.
What was the line? You have a well-deserved humility. And I'm kind of going, oh, that's like, burn, doctor to burn wards, that was bad.
Well, Veer is very humble. He does have a very deep sense of humility. And
although
he does
think in that setting, I think they were saying that he should be humble because he's worthless. That's what his uncle was saying. And I'm going, ooh, that's low. But Veer is humble, even though he is a far greater character. I'd say even almost as good up on a par with Londo.
Yeah. Well, he is very much, and I don't know if this is a minor detail. I wasn't happy with a couple of the thumbnails for some of my earlier Babylon 5 videos, so I redid them. And the one that I did for Veer and Marcus and Lanier, I termed it the monk, the warrior, and the diplomat, and that's a reference obviously to Veer, because I think Veer is a much better diplomat than he even realizes. And I will say this: he displays a degree of political maneuvering and espionage to a certain degree that I think was very impressive. Very, very impressive. And I'll bring up Bureau 31's comment here. Vir Cotto, when I marry, I want it to be for love. Linda C. Oh, a radical. No, it's not radical to want to marry for love. That should be the primary reason that you do marry, because you are in love with a person, not because you feel that you will gain something from it.
But of course, Londo did say, love? Love? What has love got to do with marriage?
Exactly. But the crazy thing is, we see this in the episode where he's trying to pick between his 3 wives, and he picks the wife that I think in his own way he did love. And that's, for heaven's sakes.
Timov.
Yeah, Timov.
Yep.
He picks the wife.
Honestly, that again, the trilogy by Peter David with Legions of Fire, it goes into all that other stuff. I mean, like, you'll get to see a lot of Veer's allies too, like the people fighting against what the Drakh are doing, and it's like pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Well, and you see 2 very different romantic relationships at work in this episode. Obviously, you've got the one between the continuing of the one between John and Delenn, and then of course you've got this one that's kind of just thrust upon Veer. And Veer being Veer, he tries to manage it. He tries to be as diplomatic as he possibly can with this relationship. And he's not trying to hurt her feelings because he doesn't want to hurt her. It's not in his nature to hurt someone else, unless he absolutely has to. But he tries to let.
I did of something else though. Ivanova and her advice to Veer about the different levels of oh yay.
Or as John Sheridan would say, woohoo!
And I just like Ivanova's face at the end. Oh my god, sex! Oh no!
Well, if you remember, Minbari males have many. Well, we're all adults here. Genitalia.
Yeah.
So I guess there are certain levels for each set of genitalia.
You're being cast in a symbolically bad light. The Babylon 5 store.
Okay, I'll bring up Elysium's comment here because it's actually a pretty good one. Centauri state weddings are somber affairs. Celebration reserved for state funerals. Indeed, Londo comments as people consider it a bad omen for a wedding to be celebrated with such enthusiasm. Yeah, I think I remember that.
That's from season Deconstruction of Falling Stars.
Oh, is it?
Or
Okay, I
that's what
did not.
Londa says, yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. It's been a while since I've watched the episode. I think I'll probably need to go back and bone up at some point. But yeah, honestly, I will say this about Veer and what he does with his position and his opportunity. He does the best thing he can to save as many Narns as he can. It's just unfortunate that the Narns got the wrong idea about what he was doing when all the Narns were quote unquote dead, and it causes a bunch of kerfuffle, and it just shows you how far the Narn will go to repay a slight. And I can't say that in this case I necessarily disagree with them, but they didn't have all the facts, unfortunately. So, but there was a conversation early on in the episode between John and Susan, and he asked her, "How long have you been in the military?" And she's like, 2247, or yeah, 47. And he's like, "So about 13 years." She's like, "Yeah." "So the military is all you've known. We're in a place of upheaval right now." And she's like, "Yeah, but I've dealt with that. You have." And he's like, "You have, but your subconscious hasn't. That's what these dreams are. Your subconscious trying to deal with what's going on in your life." And I think it's true for a lot of us when we're in seasons of or periods of transition or change. We may have dealt with something, but our subconscious hasn't. Or maybe we haven't really addressed something that is going on. I mean, there's a reason why this episode is called Sic Transit Vir. Sic Transit is Latin for in transition, if I'm doing my Latin properly.
Yes. I think it is.
Well, that, and he's being transferred from ambassador on Membar to back to the station too.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of it, it's like, oh, you've had too much free reign, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Imagine if someone who wasn't as ethical as Veer had been given that opportunity to have free reign. Imagine what they could have potentially done. Veer, on the other hand, he does do the right thing with the freedom that he's given. And that just shows his own personality, his own ethics, and his own mindset, even as a Centauri. I mean, if you think about it, Veer is a window into what the Centauri eventually will become in the future, after the Drakh have exacted their pound of flesh and Londo is dead. So it's... okay. Thank you, Elysium, I'll pop that up there.
Yeah.
From the Lurker's Guide about the title, Thus Passes Veer. It's a signal of transition, yeah. We go from a Veer that was very, for lack of a better term, simpering, to one that's very forceful. And we all come to points like that in our life. I mean, I'm about to go through one myself, transitioning from one job to another. I mean, my church that I'm a part of is currently going through a sort of a transition because our pastor was in a very serious motorcycle accident a couple weeks ago. So for the next several weeks, many people are going to have to step up to lead. I'm one of those people. So this episode really does show what transition can do for people. For Ivanova, for John, and for Veer in particular. And it's the external forces around them that really puts on display what they do with the opportunities that they are given.
Yep. And sometimes that's just how it turns out. they were all transitioning. You know, Vanova with her nightmares and like what's going to happen to us and everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, for me, I know this may seem like kind of a somewhat of a filler episode, but I think with Babylon 5, there really is no such thing as a filler episode because there's always something happening in terms of the grander story. And what we see in the seeds of this episode with Vir doing what he does for the Narn will pay off when he becomes Emperor of the Centauri. Spoilers! Very heavy spoilers for a show that's been on air for 30 years. So.
Dun, dun, dun. There you go.
Yeah. I'll bring up Beer 31's comment here. Transition seems an important theme in the third season. Yeah, Beer 31, I would agree with that. Absolutely. For the simple fact that, you know, this kind of goes back to the intros for each season, the season intros. Season 1, you have Jeffrey Sinclair, who gives the whole monologue. The Babylon Station was a dream given form. It was a place where aliens could work out their disputes peacefully. And then, of course, you have Sheridan's intro, which echoes some of that sentiment, but is somewhat different. But then season 3, you have Ivanova, when she says, "The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. It failed." She's like, but in the year of the Shadow War, it became something greater. It became our last best hope for victory. And Babylon 5 went from a place that potentially was initially a place to deal with stuff diplomatically, but then in season 3, going into season 4, it became a stronghold to preserve dreams, to preserve what it originally was designed to be, and will eventually foster in the future a place where hope and dreams will spring forth from. Sorry, I feel like I've been pontificating a little bit this stream. I apologize.
Not at all. I honestly think it's a good lesson in life, like Babylon 5, like our own situation. Things can be bad, but there's always hope. Even if the worst happens, you just hold on to that hope within, that there is a light, be it God for many of us, be it hope in each other, that you should not lose hope. Even now, they're a small, it's 250,000 people in the middle of space against insurmountable odds, but yet they can still have hope. I'm sorry, I copied that from the Lurker's Guide. It's what JMS was talking about there.
No, I think that's from the mind of that's straight from the horse's mouth. And Vir, he's a much stronger character than anyone might think. He's sort of the God's fool character, to get literal for a second. Who somehow manages to make it through it all. Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment, JMS. Absolutely.
And
that's why
I'm just sorry.
Go ahead.
Ambassador.
No, Elysium, go ahead, please.
No, I feel it's a message to all of us to maintain our character, even in like insurmountable odds, because that is what Vir does. He is still Vir, even when faced with horrific odds. Even at the worst, he said, "What can I do?" And I hope that if I'm ever faced with a situation like that, that I'm quarter the man Vir is.
Yes. Well, we all face turmoil in our lives. We all face opposition in our lives. It's simply the nature of life. But how we interact with others and how we deal with that adversity says much about who we are as a person. And to kind of put this in the lens of being a person in the public eye in terms of the online sphere, I would much rather have an alternative name that which I go by, but still retain the person that I am, flaws and everything, and be transparent in that manner, than wear a false face and a false persona. Because I find no merit in having a false persona for when I'm online. And I'll bring up your third one's comment here. No one here is exactly who he appears to be. And that's from what Jakar says to Sinclair's
Sakai.
lady.
Yeah.
Sakai,
Yep.
Catherine Sakai. Thank you, Fiona. Yeah. But the thing for me is I am who you see. I am the same person in front of the camera and off. How I regard a person who I don't know face to face is how I regard a person I know in my everyday life. If I call you friend, you are my friend. If I say that, then I deal with you the same way I deal with a person that I deal with in on a day-to-day basis. And for Vir, while he sets up the Abrahamo Lincoln character, it is a expression of who he really is. Because he wants to do good, but he simply does not have the authority to do what he needs or wants to do, so he goes about it this way, which might be perceived as underhanded and deceptive, but is for the reason for the deception is to protect others, not so much himself. Because if you realize he takes every drop of punishment, every lash and everything verbal lash that he gets from Londo and from Ivanova and Sheridan, but he's like, I regret nothing that I could not save more of them. He was deceptive, but he was deceptive for a good reason, not for a malicious or malevolent one. And that is a great testament to Vir's character. So.
And that's also why he'll eventually be an emperor and bring in Mr. Zach Allen as one of his head of security later on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And he does a good job. He makes a good move in that respect. So, well, guys, anything else we want to discuss in terms of the episode?
Is there anything else that really pops out?
Honestly, I think we've covered, well, for my part, I think we've covered a lot, but Vienna, you...
I do like the fact that Sheridan and Ivanova are talking back and forth about Abraham Lincoln at the end, and it's like he dubs her sneak in residence. It's like, you sneaky Russian gremlin.
Yes.
I do like that. She's like, resident sneak. I can live with that. Yeah. I think is what her response was.
Yeah, because she was looking for like her overall, just like with Marcus, where's the whole hierarchy of all this? Well, Sheridan gave her a little bit of a hierarchy.
Yes. Yeah. He gave her a title, but it's a title that does mean something. It's not just from comedic effect. Although it does have a hint of humor to it, which is okay. So, Anyway, well, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap up because I don't want to belabor the point. But Fiona, Elysium, thank you for tuning in today. And to all of you that were tuned in today, I appreciate you all being here. If you catch us on the replay, make sure you leave your comments down below about the episode and let us know what you all think. And of course, we will be back next week. And I do want to apologize for the short notice on the time change. I didn't get a chance to send anything out in time to let everybody know. So if you catch us on the replay, I do apologize for the time change, but we will be back next week, provided nothing comes up at our normal time of 2:30 Central Time. And I do want to let you all know that Mother Ambassador came through her surgery on Tuesday well. She is currently in the ICU as a precaution. And I just talked a little while ago with the nurse that's taking care of her. And she is doing well. And she's probably going to be in ICU for a couple more days. But I do appreciate everyone reaching out to me, your comments, your messages, and everything else. And I have relayed them to Mother Ambassador, and she does say most sincerely thank you to all of you. And we're really quick to Excelsior's domain. Excelsior, the reason I had to change, I had a personal affair come up to that I need to address, or anything in terms of a new job opportunity. So that's why we went early today. But like I said, we should be back next week at our normal time. And I do want to let you all know that I will be doing a couple more streams next week and everything on some topics, and I will send out some updates and so on as those go forward and I get them set up. So be sure to tune in for that. And we are closing in on 400. We are 3 away. And as soon as we hit that 400 subscriber mark, we will do our next big celebration, and we'll mark it with a watch party and everything. So, but that being said, folks, you all have a great afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are at. And until next time, these are the ambassadors saying, Zooty, Zooty, Zoot, Zoot.